One Simple Rule for a Happier Life by Ceylon George. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Benjamin Franklin. In the business world, there's something called the 1-10-100 rule. It's a cost-quality measure that seeks to represent the cost of prevention versus the costs of correcting problems or dealing with failure. Simply put, $1 in prevention costs can save $10 of correction costs and $100 in failure costs. This means that if a problem occurs within an organization, there are fewer costs associated with fixing the issue, because they have already spent money preventing them from happening. It's easy to see how this rule can apply to people wanting to live their best life. For example, in critical areas such as health, finances, and relationships, it's more beneficial to prevent potential problems before they occur rather than fix them afterward. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? So what's the problem? The urgency bias. The problem is that we human beings regularly fall prey to something called the urgency bias. This happens when we prioritize the urgent over the important. Furthermore, we conflate the two, mistakenly thinking that if something feels urgent, it must be important. Perhaps this bias is wired into our primitive brains, more suited for a time when urgency and importance were more closely linked. But in modern times, many things may feel urgent but are not necessarily important, such as phone calls, emails, or text messages. And the urgent things that are important put us in constant crisis mode, putting out one fire after another. Trouble is, when things are going reasonably well, there is little incentive to invest time, money, or effort in prevention. In the short term, it seems unnecessary, until something urgent happens: a missed quarter, a relationship breakdown, a health crisis. When a problem or crisis directly confronts us, we're more incentivized to act. However, we're also more likely to incur higher physical, financial, and emotional costs. The time management matrix. The real challenge is that prevention measures are, by definition, not urgent, but are often important. In his book The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey presents a time management matrix that illustrates the relationships between activities that are urgent or not urgent versus those that are important or not important. Here's a recreated version of his matrix. The matrix consists of 2 columns, urgent and not urgent, and 2 rows, important and not important. In quadrant 1 are urgent and important items like crises, pressing problems, and deadlines. In the second quadrant are important, but not urgent items like prevention, relationships, planning, and recreation. In the third quadrant are not important, but urgent items like interruptions, some calls, meetings, and popular activities. In the fourth quadrant are not urgent and not important items such as trivia, time wasters, and pleasant activities. Covey identifies quadrant 2 as the most optimal place for, quote, effective personal management, unquote. He continues, quote, it deals with things that are not urgent, but are important. It deals with things like building relationships, writing a personal mission statement, long-range planning, exercising, preventive maintenance, preparation, all those things we know we need to do, but somehow seldom get around to doing, because they aren't urgent, unquote. Combine this matrix with the 1-10-100 rule, and we see that we're often paying the higher costs associated with quadrants 1, 2, and 3, and missing out on the cost savings of quadrant 2. The 1-10-100 rule. How do we combat the urgency bias? By taking a page from the U.S. military and developing our own DEFCON system. The Defense Readiness Condition, or DEFCON, is a system used by the U.S. military to indicate its current state of preparedness for war. The United States Department of Defense uses this scale, which ranges from 5 to 1, in order to determine how much force should be deployed against an enemy, and whether it can defend itself if attacked. DEFCON 5 represents a normal state of readiness, while DEFCON 1 represents an imminent threat of nuclear war. Using such a system in our personal lives would force us to contemplate what's at stake when we don't take preventive measures. It can also incentivize us to act before it's too late. This is where utilizing the 1-10-100 rule in the major areas of life can help. Let's flesh out a few examples with 1 representing prevention costs, 10 representing corrective costs, and 100 representing failure costs. In the area of physical health, prevention costs include regular exercise, getting enough sleep, not overeating, drinking or smoking, getting regular checkups. Corrective costs include dieting and weight loss, medications, and specialist labs and testing. Failure costs include serious diagnosis or disease, morbid obesity, strokes, and death. Review the table included in the blog post for preventive, corrective, and failure costs associated with these areas of life, such as emotional and mental health, work environment, personal relationships, and financial wellness. The best investment you can make. Start experimenting with the 1-10-100 rule in areas of your life that you wish to improve. Create your own chart, clearly laying out the best and worst case scenarios. Review it every day. Let it motivate you to invest more time and resources in prevention. You'll find yourself experiencing better returns than you ever imagined.